You see, a lot of haters got a lot of things to say about me and my race and how I ran it, but the reality is that there was a lot of racist, not a lot, it was racist. It was a racist race. It is what it is, right? But we live in America, as y'all are celebrating 250, okay? We know what this country is.
Or it could be that you were a poor candidate for a Senate seat in Texas. Maybe Jasmine Crockett should consider that, but she isn't. And instead, after losing a primary race against a Democrat in Texas for a Senate seat, she decided to then attempt to sink the Democrats' candidacy, which would, help his opponent, Ken Paxton, who is a disgusting sleazeball, win as a United States senator. Which really shows you what Jasmine Crockett's actual values are and how little she cares about the people of Texas and this country. So let's get into what she's doing to the Democratic candidate, James Talarico, who did in fact beat her in the primary race. So once you've lost, move on. You have to be a good sport about it, and you have to look ahead to the very real threat of someone like Ken Paxton becoming a United States senator. But she just can't get herself to do that. So let's talk a little bit about the campaign substance. If you rewind and take a look at that Democratic primary, Jasmine Crockett released her announcement video. And in that video, she effectively summarized her entire pitch to voters. Let's watch it and see if it was a persuasive pitch.
How about this new one they have, their new star, Crockett? How about her? She's the new star of the Democrat Party, Jasmine Crockett. They're in big trouble.
But you have this woman, Crockett. She's a very low IQ person.
I watched her speak the other day. She's definitely a low IQ person. Crockett. Oh, man. She's a very low IQ person.
Somebody said the other day she's one of the leaders of the party. I said, you got to be kidding.
Now they're going to rely on Crockett. Crockett's going to bring them back.
Okay, so nothing. There was nothing there at all. Trump said mean things about her, as he's done with pretty much everyone in the Democratic Party and some in the Republican Party. But what are you proposing you do as senator again? Because there was nothing there. Anyway, on the campaign trail, Crockett did claim that affordability was her number one issue. She really cares about affordability, which is why she's trying to sink James Talarico's candidacy right now as we speak. But during her time as a United States Congresswoman, she had already established a brand of partisan warfare, meaning it's us versus them no matter what, and we will not work with them even if there's agreement on issues that are important to my constituents. Fiery, if not insensitive comments, including mocking Texas Governor Greg Abbott's disability and the fact that he needs a wheelchair. I loathe Abbott. I don't think that it's helpful to mock his disability. And also cozying up with establishment Democrats. I mean, she is an establishment Democrat, which many Democratic voters have moved away from, to be honest with you. Furthermore, Crockett has gone out of her way to, even alienate Republican voters. And some of you might think, Republican voters aren't going to vote for her anyway, right? Well, they're definitely not going to vote for her if she's like intentionally antagonizing them. So let's watch a little of what she had to say, and then we'll juxtapose her statements to what James Talarico did to win the primary race.
Guess what? They all align with your side.
Yep.
Including the KKK. So this is who aligns with that. So inherently in who you are, y'all are violent. Y'all, and most of your violence has to do with people that's got a little bit of melanin. But nevertheless, y'all are a violent group of it. You attract violent actors. I mean, you can go back and play the clips of him talking about how he loves the uneducated, right? If he would ever run for president, he would run as a Republican. And we know, this isn't me trying to throw shade. These are just the facts. Mm-hmm. When you look at who's voting for who, the less educated folk, and when I say educated, I'm not even talking about formal education. I'm talking about people that literally don't want to read and enlighten themselves on facts. Those are the people that typically vote for the Republicans, and it's one of the reasons that we have to stop writing in theses as Democrats, right? Like, we want to give you every single little detail that we can find so that you can have all the information. But the reality is that the average person that is going out there and voting, they're not paying attention to that.
Okay, got it. So Republican voters, they're all dumb, they're all irredeemable, they're all violent. Winning message. Meanwhile, James Talarico, much like Zoran Mamdani in New York, welcomed all voters to his campaign. Take a look.
My experience, when you extend an open hand instead of a closed fist, you'll be surprised by who takes that hand. That's how I flipped a Trump district in a red county. That's how I passed major bills in a Republican-dominated body. If you hate politics and you've never voted before, you have a place in this campaign. If you've voted for Democrats, but you're tired of DC Democrats always folding, you have a place in this campaign. And if you voted for Donald Trump, but you are fed up with the extremism and the corruption in our government, you have a place in this campaign. A new kind of politics is possible. It's waiting to be born through all of us. And a movement that radiates that kind of love is unstoppable.
You guys see the difference? Now just think about human psychology and what is actually a more appealing message when you're trying to make a decision for who you're gonna vote for in a Democratic primary. Talarico has a record of policy wins because he's not some new politician. He's been serving as a Texas state legislator. And so what has he accomplished? He reduced prescription drug costs by capping insulin copays at $25 a month in Texas. Seems pretty important. Certainly more important than a video featuring Trump mocking you or criticizing you. But anyway, there's more. He lowered housing costs by replacing outdated regulations to increase the supply of apartments and condos. Yes, that is the right solution. Yes, yes, yes. Lowered childcare costs by establishing property tax exemptions for childcare providers and increasing the supply of high quality centers. These are smart policies, guys. They just are. You can tell he's thoughtful. You can tell that he thinks through policy proposals. Like, for instance, housing is a perfect example. I think a lot of Democrats make the mistake of thinking, well, housing costs are too high, so we need to subsidize homeowners or people who are looking to buy a house. No, you have to understand the root of the problem of the housing crisis. We don't have enough supply. Yeah, we don't have enough supply. So you do need to find ways to incentivize more building. Anyway, so let's take a look at some of Talarico's campaign ads.
Billionaires don't just influence politicians, they own them. That's why I don't take corporate PAC money. It's why I fought to cap campaign contributions.
In the Senate, I'll ban billionaires from making unlimited secret donations.
I'll stop members of Congress from trading stocks, and I'll raise taxes on those at the top to fund tax cuts for the rest of us.
I'm James Talarico, and I approve this message because our government should work for all of us, not just billionaires. When I was 28, I almost died. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. When I picked up my first insulin prescription, it cost me $684. I couldn't afford that. Most Texans can't either. So when I got to the Texas House, I took on Big Pharma and capped insulin at $25 a month. I'm James Talarico. I know what it means to fight for my life. I approve this message because in the Senate, I'll fight for yours.
You guys notice how he didn't make his political ad about Trump? Like, that's also important because the Democratic Party, the establishment, has really relied on fear-mongering about Trump in order to win elections without providing solutions, without providing a set of policy proposals that would be appealing to voters. So the juxtaposition from, between Jasmine Crockett's ad and Talarico's ad, it's night and day. Remember, you're making a pitch to your voters. You're making a pitch. You're trying to get them to believe that you're going to improve their lives. Now, I don't know if Talarico is going to carry out all the wonderful policies that he claims he's going to carry out, but he's running on those policies, whereas Jasmine Crockett ran on what again? So in the Democratic primary, Talarico got about 52% of the vote, whereas Jasmine Crockett received 46%. So as the Texas Tribune wrote when Talarico won, Talarico's approach resonated with a majority of Democratic primary voters who chose his offering of a political reset over Crockett's promise to unapologetically wage partisan warfare against the GOP. Which I've personally lost any appetite, not any appetite. I think the GOP should be fought on issues where we do have legitimate disagreements. But right now, there is a growing, it's small, I don't want to overplay it, right? Or overstate it. But there's growing unity among left-wing and right-wing voters, especially young left-wing and right-wing voters on issues of foreign policy, for instance. So I want to kind of shed this, it's us versus them no matter what mindset, and actually think about this on an issue by issue basis. I don't want Americans to see their fellow Americans on the other side of the political aisle. I'm not talking about politicians, I'm just talking about ordinary people. I don't want you to see them as your enemies. It's ripping the country apart. And Jasmine Crockett sees that and she seems to want to play into it more. All right, so with that in mind, Crockett versus Talarico. How is Jasmine Crockett trying to sink his campaign or sabotage his campaign? Well, technically, Crockett did endorse Talarico after he beat her in the primary. However, since then, she made it pretty obvious that she has no interest in helping him beat Ken Paxton. Ken Paxton. If you don't know who Ken Paxton is, look him up. And you'll understand why, look him up and you'll understand why it's important to beat him, okay? But apparently Crockett is so self-obsessed and narcissistic that what's important to her is tanking Talarico's campaign because she's bitter. So what kind of tactics is she deploying to do that? Well, she's not campaigning with him, that's for sure. She will campaign with down ballot Black Democratic candidates, but only Black Democratic candidates, which will drive voters to Talarico somehow. How does that make any sense? She's also saying that it's racist to expect her to campaign with Talarico. It's racist to not want Ken Paxton to win. And honestly, at this point, I think she's doing Talarico a favor. Please don't campaign with him. Don't campaign with him. But here's another thing that she's doing. She says, we have never seen anybody, quote unquote, be pressured to jump into a Senate race to help out their opponent that beat them. He's the Democrat, dumbass. Are you stupid? You're not stupid. That's the thing. You're not stupid. You're a very educated woman, very successful, very accomplished. So you're asking a stupid question as if you're a stupid person when you're not. And it just so happens that it ended up being a high-profile Black woman. No one cares that you're a Black woman. No one cares. Literally no one cares. No one cares. You lost the race and people are asking you to campaign with Talarico in order to help him beat Ken Paxton. It's not about you. It's about the best possible outcome for the people of Texas and the rest of the country, because this is a Senate seat. Some polling on where Talarico stands with Black voters, by the way, I think that's real important given the context of this conversation. The unease about Talarico's standing with Black Texans stems from a primary in which polls consistently showed the Austin Democrat with meager support, sometimes under 10% from Black voters. The rest went to Crockett, forming the basis of her 46% vote share in the March primary. However, that was the primary. Recent public polling found that 80% of likely Black voters plan to support Talarico over Paxton in November. At this point in their respective election cycles in 2018 and 2024, Democratic US Senate nominees Beto O'Rourke and Colin Allred both polled below 50% among Black voters, and both ultimately won roughly 90% of the group. So we should also note, for the record, that Crockett does not exactly have a perfect record, when it comes to racist remarks. And this is what I'm talking about.
Let me ask you about a quote that you've made that has some Democrats worried about your ability to win statewide. In a December 2024 Vanity Fair profile, you talked about, quote, and I'm gonna read a lot of the quote just to put it in the context, quote, all the complexities within the Latino community. The immigration thing has always been something that has perplexed me about this community. It's basically like, I fought to get here, but I left y'all where I left y'all, and I want no more y'all to come here. If I wanted to be with y'all, I would stay with y'all, but I don't want y'all coming to my new home. It almost reminds me of what people would talk about when they would talk about kind of like slave mentality and the hate that some slaves would have for themselves. It's almost like a slave mentality that they have.
She also had no problem taking money from a lobbying group that represents a foreign country that is deeply racist. And of course, that's AIPAC and the country of Israel. Mass slaughter of Muslims because they're Muslim, not a problem for a woman who purports to really be concerned with racism. And when the left flank of the Democratic base, wanted some answers, asked some questions about her support for Israel, even throughout a genocide that they were carrying out, she got real salty about it. Maybe she finds that racist too, I don't know. Or, and I think this is the reality, she doesn't find any of it racist, none of it. But she knows that pulling out the race card can be a real effective tactic to get what you want. And we're done with that. We're done with that. We can see through it. So I hope Talarico wins. And I thank Jasmine Crockett for showing the whole world who she really is.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.